Our next awards are the Everett McKinley Dirksen Awards for Distinguished Coverage of Congress. Anybody who knows the history of this award knows it's one of the most established and important ones given for journalism practiced in the nation's capital. Here to introduce the awards is Cissy Baker, broadcast journalist, former member of the MPF board, and granddaughter of Senator Dirksen.
Well, I get the easy part tonight because my grandfather Dirksen tweeted me this morning. And he said for all of you to pay attention because what he's going to tell you tonight is how Congress is battling over raising the federal debt. Let's listen to the tape.
Now, before Congress is another request. We had one last year. We had 2 or 3 the year before to raise your public debt. And they want to raise it to $332 billion. I suppose the only time we never had a public debt was in the days when Andy Jackson was the President of the United States. But other than that, I have no recollection that we have been without a debt, but never of such colossal proportions as the debt we have today. We have a temporary debt limit which we established last year. That was $328 billion. See, the Treasury and the administration want to add $4 billion to that limit. The actual limit as of this moment, I think, is about $319 billion. But you see, we have an actual limit, we have a temporary limit, and we have a permanent limit. If Congress did nothing about the debt, the debt level would go back to $285 billion. That is the permanent debt ceiling. But if we did, we would be so far shy of what we actually owe that it would constitute a kind of repudiation. And I dread to think what would happen in the money markets, the bond and stock markets, not only in our own country, but other countries as well. So now we're confronted with this new request to raise the public debt, your public debt, by another $4 billion.
So all you have to do is change the numbers, and the story is the same, that it is your debt, it is our debt, and Congress is deciding what to do with your debt and our money. So nothing changes except everything. Our first winner tonight for the best reporting of Congress is Brody Mullins. And Brody, as most of you I think know, is from the Wall Street Journal, and when I said nothing has changed but everything has changed, Brody won this award 4 years ago. And so much has changed, but from the times of Everett Dirksen, nothing has changed. So it's an interesting conundrum. And as you all know, as I said, Brody is from the Wall Street Journal. He wrote a series of stories documenting what lawmakers do when they travel overseas on official business. Brody?
In his home state, Alabama.
Okay, these guys want to do their speech together. Tim Farnam of the Wall Street Journal wrote the series, and you all are familiar with that. And, yeah. You know what, Tim and Brody are going to be able to give you a much better understanding of what they did, but I salute them for excellence in journalism and the best reporting of Congress, which is what we try to make the Dirksen Award about. The best reporting of Congress each year. And it's always an esteemed award, and it always goes to people who understand what they're doing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Tim and I want to thank the National Press Foundation for this honor. I'd like to also thank the mayor, who's here tonight, for providing us with transportation tonight in a beautiful black Navigator. It's really surprising that on such short notice, he was able to comply with our requirement for a gray interior. As Cissy said, this is the second time that I've won this award, and standing up here, I can't help but think about how much has changed in journalism, in the media world, in those 4 years, as she was saying. For example, just 4 years ago, Marcus Broccoli was overseeing the decline of one of the most prestigious newspapers in America. And now, just 4 years later, Marcus Broccoli is overseeing the decline of one of the most prestigious newspapers in the country.
And 4 years ago, Mike Allen was staying up all night so that he could email inside scoops to his closest friends. Friend sources.
4 years ago, the bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal was Jerry Seid.
4 years ago, the newly elected chairman of the Oversight Committee was investigating allegedly improper emails sent by Republican staffers. 4 years ago, the Washington Press Corps was a self-absorbed, insecure bunch who only cared about hobnobbing with the political elite. And that was before Emily Miller got her press pass.
For me, personally, a lot has changed. The last time I was here, standing up here, I proposed to Ben Bradley. He said no. Apparently, I'm not a money-making, for-profit test prep company.
Mr. Bradley, sir, I did not write or approve of that joke. Despite all this dramatic upheaval, one thing hasn't changed. Good old-fashioned, tenacious reporting is alive and well in Washington. Everyone in this room helps make that happen.
I would like to thank my wife, Lauren, for her support. It is said that behind every successful woman, every successful man, it is said that behind every successful man, there is a surprise mother-in-law. Thanks for being there, Patty. I also want to thank my parents who are in the Caribbean hanging out with the beautiful ladies from Cinnamon Bay.
I'd also like to thank my parents who are here tonight from Connecticut and California. My parents are great. They've always told me I could do anything I wanted, and tonight I realized that they might have actually meant it.
We'd also like to thank a few people at the Wall Street Journal who helped make this happen, specifically Matthew Rhodes in Washington and Jerry Baker in New York. These two great leaders immediately saw the importance of our work, the value to the national debate, and they deftly and fearlessly steered these award-winning stories onto page A3.
I'd also like to thank all of my colleagues in the Journal's Washington Bureau for their support. Without your guidance, counsel, and wisdom on these stories and many others, I might not have been able to get a job at the Washington Post.
Tonight we want to dedicate this award to John Wilkie, our former friend and colleague. and a former winner of the Dirksen Award. John is always in our hearts, and by his example, he inspires us every day to try to match his standard. Thank you, John.
To win this award, Brody and I investigated how members of Congress travel overseas. What we found would shock you. On a taxpayer-funded trips, lawmakers were eating fancy meals and drinking fine wine, rubbing shoulders with influential leaders and dignitaries at exclusive events, and receiving all sorts of other gifts and a cash stipend available to them only because they held public office.
So, to be recognized for this award tonight, while eating a fancy meal and drinking fine wine for free, rubbing shoulders with influential leaders and dignitaries at this exclusive event, wearing fancy tuxedos paid for with our expense accounts, and walking away with free gifts and cash seems a fitting award for a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Dana, you've got a hard act to follow. As you all know, I'm sure you know by now, that Dana Bash of CNN has won the Dirksen Award for broadcasting. She took a special interest in the arcane practice of senatorial holds, as they called them, on administrative appointments. These reporters produced good, tight coverage of members of Congress. Their work informed the public of how the system works. Dana is the one that has brought it to our attention like, frankly, no other reporter I know. It's not a new practice, but the way that you put it into words and into video and audio was astounding. I've watched it for decades, probably since I was 10, on how these holds have taken place. And I think you've done the best job ever in explaining how that happens so that American people can understand it, not just those of us in Washington. So Dana Bash, congratulations for earning the Dirksen Award tonight. We have a video to show before Dana gets her big check. Here's the award, and now we'll watch the video.
A refueling tanker, long overdue for retirement. This senator wants its replacement made in his home state, Alabama. But Richard Shelby says the Air Force competition is a sham. So, in protest, he did something drastic. He blocked most of President Obama's nominees to an array of federal agencies that have nothing to do with his issue.
Near blanket hold, nearly 50 nominees.
40-something, that's right.
That's pretty extreme. Why'd you do that?
Well, I did it to get the attention of the administration.
And did he ever? He made headlines and became a symbol of gridlock. But in his first TV interview on the subject, he makes no apologies.
What it sounds like you were trying to do, very upfront about it, is put money, put jobs back in your state of Alabama.
Well, ultimately, I'm a senator from Alabama, but I wanted to make sure there was fairness, because if there's fairness, the jobs will go there.
Shelby eventually lifted his hold on all but 3 nominees for senior Air Force positions. Pentagon spokesman Jeff Morrell tells CNN, without these highly qualified professionals, we are not firing on all cylinders.
Do you think that the nominees that you have holds on are qualified?
Oh, I don't have any idea.
So they're leverage.
Oh, that's part of the life up there.
It is part of life here in the Senate. It's not in the official rules, but by tradition, any senator can put a hold on any presidential nominee for any reason, and both parties do it.
Hans von Spakovsky was nominated by President Bush for the Federal Election Commission. A Democratic senator held him up over a voting rights issue.
Which senator?
Senator Obama.
Just a little teaser for you there. Thank you very much. And Cissy, thank you very much. I'm grateful to receive this prestigious award named for your grandfather, Senator Everett Dirksen. I also want to thank the National Press Foundation. Congratulations to Tim and Brody. I want you all to know that pregnant women don't do shtick, so you're not going to get that here tonight. But, I really do believe that Congress is the best beaten town. The one place where we reporters can walk up to the principals that we cover and ask them questions directly. Approach John McCain and not know whether you're going to get that familiar smile or that familiar snarl. Follow Harry Reid to his office trying to figure out just exactly what he meant to say in that news conference he just had. But I've been walking the halls of Congress for many years on and off, and I still pinch myself over the remarkable access that we get. The gift means even more watching the people in the Middle East and North Africa raise their voices and sometimes lose their lives based on the basic freedoms that, frankly, we do all take for granted. Tonight is especially humbling because it's the second time I'm honored to receive this award, and I've been thinking about how much the business has changed since 2002, which is the last time I was standing here. I'd broken news that the government had intercepted communications the day before 9/11 that were never translated. Missed clues that the attacks were coming. I was a producer then, and our national security reporter at the time, David Ensor, took the news to air. TV was pretty much our only outlet for getting the news out. Now, that was 8.5 years ago, or perhaps better put, Mark Zuckerberg was just starting out at Harvard then. There was no Facebook. There was definitely no such thing as Twitter. And today I would have written it for CNN.com, tweeted it, and linked it to Facebook as soon as we got the news. It's obviously a lot easier to get information out now, and for the most part, I think that is a positive thing for journalism. But call me old-fashioned, I still believe there is a desire and a need for reporting that takes more than 140 characters, especially in explaining the confounding workings of Congress. It's why I'm so delighted that the National Press Foundation recognized our story about senators who unabashedly hold up presidential nominations as leverage for their unrelated projects or legislative goals. It's not a new concept, but it is nice, as you heard some of it, to take the time to see and hear senators in rare moments of candor fessing up and explaining why they do this. The same goes for another story that we did about senators taking money for pet projects from a bill that was supposed to go to fund the war. They're taking it for pet projects back home. It's hard to believe that a year later, after we did that story, leaders of both parties are promising no more earmarks. Maybe they're taking a cue from the late, great Senator Everett Dirksen, for whom this award is named. He's quoted as saying, "Life is not a static thing. The only people who do not change their minds are incompetents in asylums who can't, and those in cemeteries." I'm incredibly lucky to work with a stellar team at CNN. I want to recognize Lisa Jansen, who's out there somewhere, who was an indefatigable force in putting these stories together on Senate holds and earmarks. Evan Glass, who worked on another behind-the-scenes story with me, and countless others. The dogged reporters I am privileged to work with in our Capitol Hill unit. Ted Barrett, CNN's Senate producer. Deirdre Walsh, CNN's House producer. My wonderful colleague, Brianna Keeler, producers Matt Hoy, Swan Tai, and Rachel Streitfeld, the camera crews who did this, who should always get applause, I think, and Joanne Sierra, who was the editor, Craig Brofman, our fearless leader, whose commitment to journalism with context and objectivity is practically unparalleled. I also want to thank my CNN bosses who are here somewhere. Thank you very much for coming, and other colleagues who are here tonight, and my incredible parents who are here. They met at WBKB in Chicago nearly 45 years ago, and they gave me the journalism gene. They've always been my sounding boards and my cheerleaders. My brother David and Juliana for being so supportive and coming, as well as friends who are here from near and far. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge some of the people here on the dais I'm very lucky to know. Al Hunt and Andrea Mitchell, congratulations on your awards tonight. And I also want to talk about Judy Woodruff, who is here as a spouse, but has always been a mentor to me, especially when you were at CNN. In fact, when I was offered the job on air at CNN, she was one of the first people I called. I don't know if you remember this. And I asked for advice, and she was kind enough to fib and say, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." And speaking of spouses, I also want to thank my husband, John King, who is the journalist I most admire, but also the person who keeps me grounded, reminds me what's really important in life. And believe it or not, the person who says to me, "Honey, put the BlackBerry down. It's time to stop working.
Thank you.